gonna be professional.
It's a panel.
Welcome to the panel.
That's weird.
Cardboard Quills. So I figured we could start off by going through and having people introduce themselves and say, you know, where you write for and about how long you've been doing it. And then I guess I have 2 icebreaker questions.
Sick. Oh, I haven't even thought about that one. So, on the spot.
All right. Ryan, can you start?
My name is Ryan. I'm the founding editor of the Cardboard Republic. We've been around for just shy of 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
God. Yeah. And we're still doing it for some insane reason.
We'll get into that.
Oh, okay.
Cool. I am Jonathan Wolf, as many of you know. I write for islaythedragon. I have been doing this since 2010, and it's fun. That's why we keep doing it right now.
Oh, right. I forget
It's a
about
secret.
the
I'm just doing it for the kickback.
All right, we also get paid millions of dollars.
them 7-figure board game things.
I'm Jessica. I write for Gameosity.com, and I also do some work for Geek and Sundry. I was one of the co-founders of Gameosity in 2014, so I've been doing this about 4 years or so.
I'm Eric. I'm the, whatever my title is for What's Eric Playing.
Eric,
I'm
what's
the Eric.
playing?
I should have put that on my business
I'm
card.
Eric.
Here we go.
Eric.
Damn it, I just printed 1,000 of those.
Oh, no.
Whatever, they were cheap.
Just marker it in.
Yeah, I do some writing on the side for Punchboard Media, and I'm going to start doing some written work for the Inside Voices Network soon as well. I've been writing since about 2015, July 2015. Yeah, so a little over 3 years now.
All right, so I have 1 game-related icebreaker and 1 non-game related icebreaker.
Ooh.
Which one do you want first?
Absolutely the game-related one.
All right. Okay.
That's the dream.
If you had to live for a year within 1 game, what game would you pick?
My brain said, my immediate instinctual reaction was, let's make a bus route.
Okay.
That game's so happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, that's
the
fair.
worst thing you have to deal with is traffic, and even that's not that bad.
I like it.
I'd probably say Takedo. I mean, it's one of my favorite games, and it just seems very pleasant. I could spend my day at the spa, go for a walk, meet some nice people. They'll give me presents. It's great.
Yeah.
I thought you robbed those people.
Oh, is that what we're doing?
Oh, I had a completely different impression of what Takedo was about.
That changes the tone completely.
Why would that one player give you their money?
Maybe they like you. It's a tip.
You do work for them.
Yeah.
You like do their dishes or whatever.
No.
We have very conflicting narratives.
Speaking of which, I would pick the Android universe because it's cool. I don't know. It's just different than real
You
life.
just want to be a depressed android.
No, I want to hack some stuff. I want to like netrunner it up or whatever. You know,
Hack some
cyberpunk is cool.
All the kids these days are netrunner, so damn it.
I mean, I only have to be there for a year, so then I can come
That's true.
back to
Yeah.
real life and not be risking my life for data.
For more than a year.
Just for a year.
Just
then
for a
you're
year.
like, I'm good now. I'm happy again.
Yeah.
I was sad
Real
for a
life
year,
isn't
but I
that
fixed
bad
it.
after all. It's great.
It could be way worse. I should have thought of an answer.
You had literally the whole time.
This is pretty
She makes
much
some good
my
points.
And also, I wrote these last night, and you could have looked at them at any point.
life.
Well, you gave him the questions in advance?
No, they were just like in the room.
Scandalized. This whole
Uh,
panel's a sham.
I'm leaving.
Let's say Lands of Caledonia because Scotland.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fair. So I'm gonna save the other one for the end because I want to make sure we actually talk about like board games at some point and not.
I've never played a board game in my life.
I know. So I want to. One of the things that I'm really, really curious in is watching the different trends in board game media over time. How have you each noticed the gaming media world change since you first started? And where there's only 4 of you, feel free to just jump out, and if you all start like talking over each other, I'll mom it up. Like,
Mom dirty.
As the vet, John, why don't you start?
Wow.
Pressure.
Yeah, I
You've been
paid
around
so
forever.
much attention. I feel, I do feel like when I started, there were not a lot of people doing anything. So it feels like I've really failed in like gaining a significant following, being like one of like 4 people. But I don't know, just like it's great. Thank you.
No, I'm sad.
This is more like a therapy session.
Yeah.
Guys, I have a lot of
Group
emotions.
counseling.
Okay.
I'm qualified for that too. It's fine.
Group counseling.
Yay!
Great. I don't know. It just every year it seems like more people are popping up, and it gets easier and easier to just like make videos and upload things, and every website gets better, and the tools get better and easier. So I don't know. People like to talk about what they're doing. The hobby itself is growing, so I think it's just reflective of that. It's just people getting into it, discovering there's a lot of stuff to be discovered, and they want to talk about it, and there's a lot of easy ways to do that. So I think video is kind of exploded in that because it's easy to just kind of set up a camera or set up your iPhone and record yourself talking and maybe edit it down, or maybe not, but I'm not judging. I'm judging a little.
Oh no.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of exploded in the last.
I think the pacing has also really increased too.
Yeah.
Like the frequency, not only of like maybe individual people and individual outlets, but just the whole tempo of the hobby itself has drastically increased in the last 5 years. And there's this constant pressure now to keep up with that from a coverage perspective that I don't feel was as strong 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago as it is now. You're sort of pressured because of the number of games that come out, the frequency, the volume, and then how quickly some places can turn around and get something out. It creates this kind of imperative to get your own stuff out as fast as possible, regardless of your own process or even quality sometimes, and that can be kind of daunting to have to always be up against that wave.
Yeah, that can be tough, but I found that as the hobby has been growing and there are more reviewers coming in, the perspectives are changing, and the way we're constructing reviews is evolving. You know, used to be just say, hey, I like the game or I don't like the game, and nowadays there's more storytelling involved. People focus on different aspects. You know, we're getting more of like the social, talking about like underrepresented groups or, the sort of those types of things. And so I feel like the discussion's becoming richer for it.
I just showed up. I have no idea. I'm like, all good points, but I've been writing for 3 years. I went from one review every 2 weeks to last week I posted 4. And
How?
just
Like, how do you do that?
Existential dread mostly.
Okay. Sure.
Group therapy.
All your feelings are valid.
Yay!
Have any of you noticed any particular trends in like what pieces you write get the most traction, what doesn't?
Yeah, people like the hot games. You just I mean, if your dream in life is to chase metrics, it's really the easiest way to do it is to find games that are currently generating a lot of buzz and just sort of hop onto it. If you can get, somewhat lucky and get in front of the buzz, sometimes that'll work. I mean, I still get maybe, 100, 200 views a month on a Betrayal at House on the Hill Widow's Walk expansion review. I have no idea where that's coming from. I've tried to look through the analytics and I cannot figure it out.
Russia?
I assume so.
I have the same problem with Wizard Always Wins. I'm like, why are there 400 people reading this article? Like, why? I love it. It's great, but why?
I think for 2 years now, it's been my most popular article, or my most popular post. I'm like,
Huh.
oh yeah. Sorry.
My 2 most popular articles, like continuously, number 1 is 9 reasons why board games are awful, and which is a classic. And the other one is, oddly enough, an informational article about the difference between Ameritrash and Euro style gaming, which was written like 6 years ago, so it's way out of date.
I think I probably read that.
Every once in a while, I get comments that are like, "This is wrong," and I'm like, "Yes, true, but that stuff didn't really exist.
1994, it was great.
Yeah.
I keep meaning to update it and, cash in on those views, but I'm lazy.
Maybe it's time to do that.
I should.
Yeah.
Make
I
your
really
sweet
should.
board game money, sail off into the distance.
Yeah.
Buy a boat.
It's very small, but it's actually
Yeah.
a meeple boat.
Yeah, exactly. It's really just asking Meeple Source for a replacement boat for
Yeah.
one of your games.
Yeah.
Send to you free.
I'd say the big ones are lists. People
Yeah.
love lists. Yeah, you can, especially for like buyer's guides for the holidays and stuff, like those constantly get hit for us.
Game of the year stuff.
Yeah.
Does
Preview
that
lists.
guide what you end up writing about? Are you thinking about that when you're sitting down and looking at what do I have to write next?
I've been thinking about shamelessly getting a an award logo or some sort of thing I can slap on things and be like, "What's Eric playing? Loves this thing."
Play this.
Yeah, play it. It's great. It's
Eric has played this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The Eric's annual. I sold out my journalistic integrity for a fancy awards.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. That'd be hard to fit on a.
The acronym probably isn't.
No.
Whatever.
Very good. I'd like to say that I actually take that into account because objectively I know that those actually get attention and traffic. But then the stubborn part of me kicks in. It's like, no, I want to write about other things.
Yeah.
There's going to be 50 people that are going to write those lists.
Yep.
I'm going to write about something interesting and substantive and maybe critical. And so they get all the attention. But I do it anyway.
Guess you showed them.
Yeah. They didn't say it was a good kind of stubborn.
The moral high ground's a great place for a tombstone.
This is my very small hill I'm dying on.
It's a nice view.
Nice.
The moderator hates us.
No, you're fine.
Just a picture of you with moderators hate him. You don't believe what
That
this
might
guy
get
said
you
on the
some
panel.
views.
There you go. Just couldn't think of
That
it.
would work.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably would. I've always wanted to write clickbait. I've just never gotten around to it. Not for my site, but just kind of in general.
Is there board game clickbait?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
I mean, almost said something.
I mean, you don't have to name names. Don't name
I was like,
names.
a specific example would be, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
never
yeah.
mind. Yeah, of course. I mean, some would argue
Like it's
listicles in general are clickbait because
Yeah.
they're
But they're also fun.
Yeah.
I ate an entire board game. You wouldn't believe what happened next.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, no, I probably
Went
would.
to the hospital.
Yeah, almost died. And you're like, yeah, that follows. Just things like that.
So you've kind of talked about some things that you've all written that you were surprised that they gained the recognition they did. Does that happen a lot?
Thank God.
No.
Nope.
Why thank God?
I don't want a lot of traction.
You don't want traction.
I mean, traction's great and all, but I'm always waiting for that other shoe to drop where it's suddenly a lot of people read it and someone's like, I hate this guy. I'm just like,
Really?
It's all an elaborate ruse just to pull that off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if, in a lot of ways, if you go down that rabbit hole of constantly trying to chase, looking at those metrics, going really in depth and trying to go, okay, this article worked really well and this one didn't, and so I should focus on this, and this guy didn't like this person. It can drive you absolutely nuts, and it can draw you away from what you're actually trying to do, which is actually create the content. And it's usually better in the long run to kind of just focus on making new stuff rather than kind of diving into the reception that it's getting.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to be mindful of the fact that I spent 3 weeks to make this 10,000 word article, and 50 people and a bunch of Russian bots read it.
Yeah.
That that you can use that to compare the amount of time of the investment of that of doing it again, but you don't want to go, okay, well this review got me this much and this review got me this much, so I should get another one from this publisher and do another one. You don't want to do that. You'll end up going crazy.
To be fair, the Russian bots leave great comments.
Oh, yeah.
Now I too earn 6 figures working from home.
My bots are actually Turkish.
Oh, that's fun.
nice.
Turkey. I don't know why.
That's delightful.
Huh.
But my antivirus thing is you've been getting lots of people from Turkey. I'm like,
Cool. Weird.
I get a lot of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just don't check my spam anymore.
I like to read them because sometimes the stuff they come up with are so bizarre.
I saw one where I think they just accidentally hit yes on all spam comments, and so it just dumped in like basically a complete guide to spam. Because it was like 6 different distinct spam comments, and I was like, huh. Well, I mean, yeah.
All the variations.
Yeah, gotta respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice variety.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you all keep the whole process of writing reviews fresh? How do you keep from getting that burnout feeling? Because I know sometimes, especially in written reviews, it's hard because your face isn't out there. You're not always getting that external validation to keep you going. Even if some of us don't want anyone to read.
I already regret being on camera.
I balance it out by mixing in other activities. So we've started the YouTube channel, we've done the podcast, and so anytime that I need a break, I'm like, all right, let me experiment with this video or that video, and then I can go back to the writing and feel like, all right, I've done something different, now I can refresh myself. Yeah.
I have 7 writers. I might be the 7th. There might be 6. I can't count. So we have a Slack channel, and we just talk and just kind of blow off steam. And when we have to play games that aren't great, we just kind of make fun of them together, and we kind of joke about all of the things that reviewers are kind of hounded for. You know, like every few months someone starts complaining about how all reviewers just give all positive reviews just because they want more free games.
It's like a 6-month
Which is
cycle.
totally,
Yeah.
definitely true, because we love playing bad games, so we want more bad games.
Yep, absolutely.
So we
yeah.
just,
Why wouldn't I want to spend 3
Yeah.
hours playing a game that's terrible?
Yeah.
And
So
then write
it's-
up a glowing 9,000-word review of it.
I live for mediocrity.
Oh, I've internalized mediocrity.
There's your snare.
It's Eric playing mediocre game awards. Just a picture of me going,
It was.
yeah, what's saved me on that is I keep a pretty aggressive buffer of like written reviews. I have some that are now like years old and like phenomenally out of date because I just wrote it and then like Showtime Rotisserie, I said it and forgot it. And I've come back years later and been like, oh, I mean, I guess I could still post it.
Someone will read it.
Yeah, but having that means that I'm never like stressed or strapped for things, right? I can be at Gen Con and be like, I'm not writing for a week and still have content for next week. It's not something that I'm constantly thinking about even right now.
Huh.
Not at all.
That is totally vodka, isn't it?
I think
Probably
it's also
gin.
like, you can also just, I mean, we all have that urge not to, but you can also just take time off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of us are getting paid for what we're doing.
No.
We're not making a living doing it. We're doing it with our free time. We are giving up our free time so that other people are looking for guidance on what to do in their free time. So I know that sometimes when I get stressed out and I'm like, I'm not in a great place, I don't want to be writing, I just don't.
Yeah.
And I just go, there is no review this week. I used to stress out about it a lot more when it was early on, when we were getting going and getting more established. And I would like to have that not be a case on a regular basis, and I try not to. But there are some times that I just don't put one out that week, or we don't have time to get one because life. And I try not to stress over that because, again, we're just doing it for fun. You know, if I was making money off of it, it would be a little different. And that hopefully will be a problem someday.
I will agree, though, that having Slack channels where you can yell into the void about things has been really helpful.
Yeah.
My productivity has increased ever since I joined the number of Slacks that I'm in.
Gotta try that.
It's like 9 or 10.
No, damn.
Yeah, it's fine.
A lot of frustration, huh?
Eh. Everything's wonderful.
So, where do you all see gaming media going in the next few years?
I'm hoping to see more diversity in the voices so that we can get a lot more perspectives. I don't know how successful we'll be at that. It's still a struggle, I'm sure. But that would be an ultimate goal.
Right.
I think, at least I hope, but I think it will ultimately have to happen because of necessity, is I think that as the hobby grows and evolves, the media arm of it is going to have to grow and evolve as well, specifically in the area of what constitutes board game media, because right now it's kind of, like all-encompassing blob of like, if you generate any sort of content whatsoever, you are board game media. Yeah. And that we have to start carving out more defined distinctions, just like any other industry, of like, okay, like this person is a journalist, they're publishing news, they're talking about specific press releases, that sort of thing. And then, you have other people who are, generating content, and you have influencers. We have influencers, just like any other industry. We just don't call them that in board gaming. I think we're going to have to better define, a journalist from media, from a YouTube personality. There are some people that, like, their whole thing isn't so much the games that they're playing or reviewing, it's that person. And I think that we need to better differentiate that from, like, I guess a good example is like, Eric Martin, who runs all of the board game geek news. Yep. for the entire thing. So everybody, anything we think of when it comes to news announcements on the largest board gaming site, that's very much a journalistic approach. But like us going on YouTube and talking about like the 10 games we brought back from Gen Con, it's not of the same. It's not the same focus. It's not the same weight class. It's not the same caliber. And I think eventually we have to start differentiating that, both on our side but also on the public side.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I got nothing on that.
I was gonna say, I just hope that YouTube breaks and everyone just has to start reading written reviews again, and it'll just be us four.
Titans.
Yeah.
Just like
Small
winning the game.
And then we'll start killing each other naturally.
Yeah, well, there can be only one.
I think I've got an advantage. I'm a black belt.
I was just going to say, I hope you three do great without me. I'm the first one out in that scenario.
So how have you all worked over the past few years to build up your audiences?
No idea.
Okay.
I just yelled to the void on Twitter, and some people seem to like vibe with that.
Yeah, Twitter's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I made a lot of friends on there, and I always try to be very responsive to the fans. So if someone asks me a question, like I try to answer it immediately because I want people to feel like they can come to me and chat, like we're friends. Because, I'm a friendly person. And that's brought a lot of people in, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not good at that part of it. I don't like talking to people, or I don't know. So we've just tried to keep posting regularly. And I mean, we share stuff on Twitter. That's our biggest following. Probably our biggest source of traffic is actually just from Google search. Mm-hmm. And that's just from the backlog of, we might have almost 700 reviews now. Probably closer to, I don't know. But, so we just have so many games reviewed, and that's because I kept pulling in more people to keep it up, because I was,
How do you keep them there?
I used to be able to do like a review week myself, but now I do like one a month, and but I have 6 other people writing, so we do 2 or 3 reviews a week, so our backlog of reviews just keeps going. So like if people are searching for games, they're hopefully going to find the reviews on our site. And I've lost a couple of people along the way. Mostly they just disappear, and it's weird. Yeah. But I don't know. It's not. I'm not making them disappear.
They're writing
it's
on a
possible
nice
that the
farm
other
somewhere.
People are making them disappear.
They're playing board games upstate.
Yep. On the phone.
We have fun, and I don't know. I don't know why people stay. You ask them. They're not here.
Such an optimistic
That did make me think of one thing that's kind of interesting is that I think my biggest following is Instagram, but Instagram has a really bad conversion rate for like linking, because Instagram doesn't allow outbound links on content except for the one link that you can have on your profile to your website. So it's just not a good way to it's a good way to engage with your audience because you can post pictures of games, you can post pictures of stuff, you post pictures because it's the gram. Whatever.
Instantly.
Yeah, but it's not a super good way to get people to actually really convert to reading stuff unless you post them on Instagram. But then that kind of defeats the purpose for like various metrics reasons.
Yes, agreed.
What games tend to work best in a written format versus something like a YouTube review or like a podcast or audio review? Is that something that you ever really think about?
I don't think there's a specific game that works better or worse. I think each method has its drawbacks and benefits, and yeah, I think the same games that are hard to write reviews about are hard to talk about. So.
Yeah. There are some that are they're definitely hard to quantify no matter what medium you're using. We have run on occasion a couple that might be like easier in one format than another. So like just off the top of my head, like there are certain dice games that just the action, depending what the kind of dice game it is, not just to like roll and place them, but just kind of some of the weirder dice games that exist. Sometimes it is a lot easier to visualize that, and so you can write about like you roll the dice and then you do this and you do this, and it doesn't necessarily convey as much. I guess some dexterity games would be like that too. Anything with a lot of like active player going on in that game, it's not necessarily the easiest in written or even audio, and that's where I think video can really be beneficial for that. But we can talk for days about pushing cubes. Like that's easy.
It's sort of how we do it too. Is like we have sort of separate categories. If there's a game that's really short and can be talked about in like a minute, we have Game in a Minute. You know, we'll just bang out a game and that'll be that. If it's a party game, there's a lot of action and people are yelling and having a good time, we like to film those and do video reviews because you can feel the energy.
Right.
And then for, you know, any other game that we feel like, you know, it's like written review can be just fine. It just depends on what kind of energy you're getting from the game.
Right. And it can go the other way too, because like there are some like really crunchy, you know, heavy Euro games that you could sit there and listen to them drone for 20 minutes about like this mechanic or this process, and if you can do it in a concise way in a written form, it can actually be even more engaging because you can talk about that intrigue and that tension and you don't have to go through that lengthy viewing process or listening process where you can sum it up in like one really good paragraph if it's done right.
Yeah, that's something I struggle with a fair bit. I have trouble with games that tend to be like just high logistical complexity because I try to keep a lot of stuff in my brain when I'm writing a review without having to consult the rule book too much or like be sitting there playing it. So games like Spirit Island, where it's difficult to keep the whole game state in your brain at once, I find pretty difficult to imagine like, how am I going to review this? At what point is a game ready for a review? Do I have to have only played with the base spirits? Do I have to have moved past it into these things? Like, I guess questions or games where it's unclear at what point the game is reviewable are ones that I struggle with. I struggle with legacy games for the same reason.
Yeah.
Because it's like, do I review after game 1, game 9? Do I review at the end and then try to remember what game 1 was, even though game 1 was maybe 6 months ago?
And how much do you reveal?
Exactly.
You don't want to ruin the game for people.
No, exactly.
And that was actually a better worded version of one of the questions is...
Panel
Good
points.
job, Erin.
Yeah.
Panel points. Guess the panelist question. Plus 10.
When you are sitting there, you know, do you have any set guidelines for when a game is ready to review? Is it a number of playthroughs thing? I know that's another like 6-month wave that goes around.
People will murder you in the streets if you have not played games X times where X is surprisingly arbitrary.
Yeah.
Is it 3? Is it 10?
Some games don't need that. Some games you play it the first time, you're like, I love this. This is it. I'm done. I'm good.
or some games you play once, but the game itself is just 3 to 5 consecutive rounds of the same gameplay. And so after a full game of it, you've got a pretty good sense of how it plays because you just played the game part of it 3 to 5 times.
Yeah.
You're like, well, okay, but if you put, I logged 1 play, someone's like...
It's definitely an area of like you said, perpetual discussion and consternation. And what makes it even more frustrating is you have the constant back and forth of, you know, do you disclose it? Do you not? Should you have to? Should you not? It's this weird, like, public ethics discourse that I never thought I'd actually have to, like, have that conversation. But
Hi. Sorry.
I just mean in general. I mean, you know, there's always, it's like every few months. It's like, oh, well, so-and-so only reviewed this game, only played this game one time, and then put out a review of it, or 3/4 of one time, and put out a review of it. And then, you know, then you get a whole other group of like, I won't do it for anything less than 5 times. And then there's just this constant conversation back and forth. I think people said that, like, every game is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
If you're talking, you know, like Arkwright or something, yeah, you have to play it more than once to get an understanding of what the game's going. Like, but you know, I can play Rhino Hero like 2 times and know what the game's doing.
Yeah.
Clearly, you haven't delved into the deep strategy of Rhino.
Oh no, we have gotten super Rhino, super awful people.
Yeah, I have definitely played games as well where I'm like, I do not want to play this 5 times.
Yeah.
Please do not make me.
And then you have to make your friends play it with you,
Yeah.
and then you have to find different friends.
Yep.
Because they're like, well, I can only do this one once with them.
This is one of the places that I often segue into, like, the idea of negative reviews. Is people are like, oh, why don't you, you know, write reviews of games you don't like? And I'm like, okay, let me paint you a word picture. So you're a movie critic, and you watch a movie, and you're like, oh, this movie was terrible, but I'll watch it 2 or 3 more times to make sure. Now imagine if you were a movie critic, but you had to force someone else to watch the movie with you every time you watched it. And they're like, oh, but I don't want to watch a bad movie. And you're like, no, but I need to watch this bad movie. So I need to drag you into this pit as well. Like, this sewer is where we both live. And you have to, like, do you go in saying, I think this movie is bad and I don't like it, but I want to make sure? Or do you do the more nefarious, it could be good?
It could be fine. I feel like I really missed something the first time I watched this movie, and so I want to try it again.
A random question though, like, have you guys ever run into the situation where you got a game and it was actually so bad that your friends were turned off to it, to a point where you couldn't get anybody else to do it, and you couldn't actually get the review done?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay. So it's not just me. I'm like,
It was very embarrassing. Had to ping people and be like, hey, sorry I can't get this review done, but I cannot find anybody who wants to play this.
All right. So
I don't think I've ever done that. I think I've forced my friends to suffer through it.
For large,
He knows.
Yeah.
for like large
Paragon
group
virtue.
social deduction games, though, you're like,
So you can play you can play that 3 times in a night, and you say, oh, just one more round, and then I will throw this box in the garbage can.
It's
and
true, but that's 8 people you have to, like, drown in a river.
Yeah. Oh God.
I don't mind. I give them snacks. Okay,
Yeah.
there's snacks.
I've tried that too. They've eaten the food and still
There's-
refuse to play.
See, what we do is we go, okay, well, before you give us this game, let us look it up and see if we even think it's gonna be our thing. Because
Right.
if it's not, we're not even touching it.
Start doing that more, yeah.
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 It's just a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I know. Especially when you first get started, because you'll take
Yeah.
like anything that people
Oh,
want to
yeah.
give you, and then you eventually learn like, no, I have to be way more discerning that it's something that I'm at least going to think I'm going to like.
Yeah.
Or
But
we're
you
going to lose friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But
here's
you
a-
can still be wrong. I mean, I've had a number of games where I'm like, this is gonna be awesome, and
Yeah.
I get it, and I take it, and I play it, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then sadness.
there's a fun variant on this problem, though, which is like, okay, let's say that you have now successfully alienated all your friends and you need to play this particular game. You're like, oh, well, I do know other game groups that are always looking to play. And you go and they're like, oh, well, you know, you do game reviews, so you must have pretty good taste in games.
Oh no.
And you're about to make them play this game that you know is bad. And so you're like,
Then they hate you.
Yeah, and they're like, this person's the worst.
Yeah.
And you're like, at a certain point, there's a social cost to reviewing bad games games you don't like. I really need to try harder to make a distinction between bad games and games that I just don't like. But there are some in both. But that penalty is very real.
Yeah.
And it's very tangible. It's not something I think a lot of people consider.
No, it's not a very publicly advertised thing.
Yeah.
All right, we are almost out of time.
My
Oh.
God.
It's
That's greater than-
7:49.
Wow.
Yeah.
All that setup.
Yeah.
No,
Thank
it
God
was
we
a
had
lot of setup.
Thank God we had to disassemble our entire microphone apparatus.
But I figure we have time for my last icebreaker, which is Eric's favorite question.
Uh-oh.
What's Eric playing?
Shit.
Eric's second favorite.
I mean, heck, sorry. This is a family-friendly stream.
Not anymore.
Yeah, no, just
We're gonna
ruined
bleep
it.
it out.
If you
that
could
up.
take any movie and replace all of the characters except one with Muppets,
Oh my god.
what movie would it be?
Oh, I got one now. Just thought about
He's
it.
not allowed to use any that he's used previously.
Okay, failure to launch, keep Terry Bradshaw.
Huh.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, you should. I can unequivocally recommend it.
All right.
Yeah.
What's
The
it about?
Muppet version or the real version?
Either.
That's a good question.
I think maybe Mad Max and just leave the character of Furiosa alone. Because it would be so funny to watch her like interacting with all of them.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
sounds super.
I feel like Galaxy Quest,
Oh.
and you could probably pick any of the main characters, but Alan Rickman is Alan Rickman,
Yeah.
so I would leave him.
It's a good
And that
one.
would be
Yeah.
great. That'd be great.
See that's almost identical to what I was going to say. I was going to go Die Hard, but also leave Alan Rickman.
Great. Really, any movie,
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
and leave
Any
Alan.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Alan
even
Rickman is in, or
if you do
he's
Love
not in
Actually
it.
and just leave Alan Rickman in it,
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
why are his kids Muppets?
It's like,
And you're like,
Yeah.
It's like add Alan Rickman. It's great.
yeah,
Alright.
to live with that.
But I
one.
just the idea of like Hans Gruber and a bunch of Muppets.
That would be.
Well, yeah, it's
That's-
we were
Yeah.
talking about this at lunch. It's like, Hans is holding the gun on Kermit. Kermit's sword reaches behind him. Watch that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely.
We're starting a
Alright,
whole new series.
well,
It's a really good idea.
Thank you all for being on the panel. Thank you guys for sitting here and listening.
Thank you guys. Okay.
Anything else before we wrap up?
Do you guys have any questions?
Do you guys have any questions? Feel
Do
free
you
to
guys have
ask.
any questions?
But you need to raise your hands so that I know.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll also repeat the question for the stream.
We got a question. No.
What are your favorite types of games to play, and why? Just
I like games with fun themes.
Mm.
Like when I'm looking at games, I'm like, I want to do something that's like upbeat or like
Zany.
off kilter,
Yeah.
zany, yeah, all sorts of stuff that's like fun or just like kind of silly. And I find that a lot of games are embracing either this from like a wholesome perspective, like let's make a bus route where you're just like beep beep the bus,
Yay.
or like Ice Cool where you're just a bunch of penguins and you're just sort of slapping around a school and you're like, why are you slapping penguins? And you're like,
I'm the principal and I do what I want.
little narrative dissonance, and you're like, what?
That's like game.
All of these are bad, but yeah, those.
Yeah, I come from the same perspective. The first thing I do is I look at a game and see the theme, and that's usually what draws me in. But my main types of games I like are like anything with city building or something where I get to construct something and have something at the end. Because even if I lose, I can be like, well, I built that. That is mine.
It
Exactly
makes
the
you feel
same
like
way.
you did something.
Yeah.
Have you played Catch the Moon?
No, not yet.
Oh, I have it. Do you want to play it later?
Yeah, sure.
You're building ladders and you can make the moon cry,
Oh, no.
which is the dream. Take that, moon.
What does
Stupid
Moon do?
moon.
Wow.
Affected tides.
Just
Someone has more issues than we have time for.
You
That's a
betcha.
different group there.
It's a whole nother panel.
Yep.
I like big, epic space games.
Didn't know where that was going.
Especially good. I like building up a civilization in space and then building a fleet of spaceships, sending them out to go blow up other people's spaceships, and then having mine get blown up, and then
I like how you
Come
like,
back.
getting your ships.
no,
blown
it's
up.
part of the fun, You're like you throw your ships out there, and sometimes you blow them up, and sometimes you don't.
That's beautiful in a way.
Maudlin general ever.
It's fine,
Go out there and win or die.
I got ships.
You accept fate,
He's like, we
Wait,
blow up
just-
one of their big ships,
wait,
we
that's-
lose our
that's-
entire fleet in the process.
I love playing. Last time I played Twilight Imperium, which is my favorite game of all time. I played the race. It's called the Yin Brotherhood, and they have a ship where you just like send it out, and if it gets blown up, it blows up every other ship. which is just super fun because then it goes both ways. You send it out, they blow it up, they blow up. Like everybody wins because everybody loses.
I'm not sure you know.
I
what
win.
one
No,
is.
I win because it's great. Anyways, I also like building things up.
And then blowing
Long
it.
sentence, leans into the microphone. I also like city games.
City games are fun. I will play just about anything that doesn't involve some form of me showing off my awful dexterity. But aside from that, like my preferential stuff is usually longer games where I can really sink my teeth into a long-term strategy and plan ahead. So that can be something as short as like a half-hour game if it's really kind of thinky. But yeah, usually my go-to games, if I had my say, are usually those like 2.5 hour games where I can really dive into it and kind of tinker with different ideas and different long-term approaches and surprise endings where I get like a bajillion points and stuff. Or not. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Any other
Anybody
questions?
else?
I mean, like 33% of our group has asked questions, so like
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been
it's
on
really
other
good.
panels. Take that, panels.
Haha.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks, panelists.
Good job, guys.
We did good.
Crushed it.
Thanks, audience.